Hi, this is Jenny from the Sewing Palace in Helena, Montana, and I'm here to show you how to make flying geese units for quilting. They're a very common unit in quilting, and we're going to show you a couple cool quilts that have flying geese units in it. Did you like those quilts? Are you inspired to make a flying geese unit? Well, here is one right here, and I'm going to talk about two ways to make the unit. So this is a flying geese unit. It has the sky, this is the goose, and this is the sky of the unit. This is the same unit, it's just a transfer of colors. So this is the goose, and this is the sky, and they can stack together to form really cool things. So this unit right here is a finished 4" by 8" unit. That means when it's unfinished, it's 4.5 by 8.5. So I'm going to show you the flip and sew method first. All right, so here we are with the flip and sew method. You take your finished size and you add a 1/2 inch. So this finished size of this unit would be 4" by 8". So I've cut this 4.5 by 8.5. This is going to be the goose. The sky will be flipped and sewn onto the corners like so. These pieces are half of the size, finished size, 4 inches, and then you add a 1/2 inch. So I have a 4.5 by 8.5 and two pieces that are 4.5 by 4.5. Let's sew those together. You will first lay them right sides together, just one at a time, and you'll mark diagonally from point to point. You will sew on that line, and then you will cut off the excess. So I'm going to do that real fast. So I have sewn on the line, and then I'm going to cut off the excess. That's the one thing about the flip and sew method, is you always have a little bit of waste. So I cut that off so I have a 1/4 inch seam, and then I have the Woolly Wonders pressing mat here with a nice hot iron. And I'm going to gently press that seam so that it is facing upwards and press it nicely. All right, so we have our unit pressed at this point. We're going to then lay the next square right sides together. You'll take a marking pen of some sort. I use the friction pen. You'll join those 2 points and mark the line, and then you will sew directly on that line yet again. So I've sewn right on that line. I'm going to trim off the excess, so I'm going to take a 1/4 inch measure from that seam allowance, and then I'm going to cut. So this is the pieces that you will have left over after you've made your flying geese. So this is the leftover pieces. You could make some other units out of that. And then you will again press this so that it is up and away from the seam. And you have a lovely flying geese unit. So that is the flip and sew method that can have a little bit of waste. One challenge with this method is sometimes when you flip and sew these, you don't have a 1/4 inch reveal right here. And sometimes it's not going right to the point. Like this one I've not sewn right to the point. So when you have a perfect flying geese, you have a 1/4 inch reveal, your diagonal goes right to the point, and it's a beautiful, perfect square. And this should be measuring at this point 4.5 by 8.5. So there's another way to do it, and we'll talk about that next. All right, I just showed you the stitch and flip method. Sometimes what can happen with that is you don't have a perfect rectangle all at the end. So you could make it a little bit larger and trim it down using the Bloc Loc ruler. This fantastic ruler is designed to lock into the seams in all 3 places, and you trim around it. So I have done that same thing with this ruler, and let me show you how I would trim it down. So I've got it locked in. The ruler has this routered out edge, so it locks into my seam and it doesn't move. I then have my 1/4 inch reveal, and then I'm trimming right to each of these points. So I will trim on all 4 edges, and when I'm all done, this will be perfect, and it will sew into my quilt much easier than not having a perfect rectangle. So the Bloc Loc method is just a way of making it a little bit bigger, and then you trim it down so that you have a nice unit when you're all done. so here we are with the Bloc Loc, still the stitch and flip method. The math to do that is in every ruler that you buy from Bloc Loc that's a Flying Geese ruler. So it will give you the measurements for all of the sizes for Flying Geese units. All right, so we just did the flip and sew method, and we did the flip and sew method using the Bloc Loc ruler. There's another cool method, which is no waste Flying Geese. Let's combine Bloc Loc with no waste and make 4 at a time. It's so cool. So there's a chart that we'll provide in the link of the video, and it is by Bloc Loc, and it is called the no waste method. It has 4 squares that you will cut that are small and 1 large one. And then you sew them through this process, and I'll show you that, and you end up with 4, and you square them up with the Bloc Loc unit. So this large square here is going to be the goose, and then these small squares here will grow up to be the sky. So I'm going to show you an example of that right below our chart. So here is the large piece at the bottom. It's my gray, and I have 2 small pieces here, and the chart has told me what to cut those. So they are cut. This large square is 9 1/2, and the 4 small squares are 5 1/8. So 9 1/2, 5 1/8, and that will finish to a 4 by 8 finished Flying Geese. I'm going to take 2 of those 5 1/8 inch squares, lay them right sides together from point to point. They should overlap in the center, and then you will mark diagonally from point to point, and then you will sew on each side of the line. So a 1/4 inch on this side and a 1/4 inch on that side. So let's go sew. All right, you've sewn on each side of the line, and then you will cut right on that line, yielding 2 pieces that look like this. So I'll pull that away, and then you will take it to your pressing mat, and you'll press this up like so, and then you have a piece that looks like a heart. You will then take one of those other 5 1/8 for this unit. You'll lay it right in that little crease of the heart, and you'll sew on each side of the line. Let's go sew. All right, we sewed on each side of the line. We are going to cut right on the line that we had marked, and we will have the beginnings of one of our Flying Geese. I'm going to go ahead and press that. So I have this Woolly Wonders mat. It's awesome. And I'm going to press that up like this. We're all pressed, and now we're going to trim this up. So I've got my finished 4 by 8 Flying Geese ruler from Bloc Loc. It's going to lock right into these seams. I've got my 1/4 inch reveal, a perfect 45-degree angle on all the corners, and I'm going to trim all the way around to have the most beautiful unit ever. The Flying Geese we made today are from the quilt called Nellie Gray. It's featured in the book By the Bundle, which is a fat quarter friendly book that has 12 different quilts. And Nellie Gray is this cute little quilt in the book made out of white, gray, and yellow. And we have it made up here on our table so that you can see it. There's a new fabric that Hoffman has made, which is digitally printed fabric. And they have come out with ways to help it make it easier to match up or coordinate fabrics and store our fabrics. So what they've done is they've come out with fat quarters already printed on running yardage, and I'm going to show you those. All right, so some of the fat quarters that they've already printed, here is the yellow that's in Nellie Gray. Here is the gray. They've also come out with a really beautiful pastel, all different prints, but they all coordinate. Let me show you how they come on the bolt because it's really cool. This is the gray on running yardage that has 8 fat quarters, all of gray, and all these beautiful different prints that you can get out of the gray. Here's a couple other digital fat quarters that Hoffman has come up with. There's Christmas out of all these cute, adorable prints, running yardage. There's also the gray. This is what it would look like when you purchased it. And here's a gorgeous teal. So lots of choices to choose from. All right, so we've made a bunch of flying geese units, and we're going to make a Nellie Gray quilt from By the Bundle. Let's do a quick breakdown of the block so you can see how it goes together. So here it is with the rectangle in the center. I've got a flying geese unit top and bottom, and when those go together it would look like so. Then I've got another flying geese with the colors transferred so that they are gray in the center. And there we are with a Nellie Gray unit. There's also a sashing that includes a square and a square block that will go in between the rows of the Nellie Gray blocks right here. Have fun, happy quilting. This is Jenny from the Sewing Palace. Bye-bye.